Thank you for joining me today. It's Brian Gubernick, and welcome to the No Days Off podcast, where we believe that every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. The survival of the friendliest. Maybe you've never heard that term before. It's something I just kind of recently came across. Certainly heard of survival of the fittest, but I hadn't heard of survival of the friendliest. And it's going to sound crazy where I heard this and why I'm talking about it on the No Days Off podcast here today. But I picked it up. I first heard it about, I don't know, a month ago when I was watching some show on Netflix, a documentary on the mind of a dog. And in the documentary, one of the individuals being interviewed said that part of the reason dogs have survived evolution to the extent, like history, to the extent that they have. You know, they extend from wolves and they've lived for years and years and years and years. And the argument that this individual is making is that dogs survived because of how friendly most of them happen to be. We have even bred dogs to be friendlier. And because of the companionship for the human protects the dog. And it's led to a population of dogs that's flourishing and highly unlikely to ever go extinct, at least in my time or many generations to come. So the idea here was, or is, that maybe early on it was survival of fittest, being that they morphed from wolves, the traditional wolf, they domesticated the wolf, but that was survival of the fittest. But now they've continued to prosper because of survival of the friendliest. And it got me thinking. You're like, Brian, why would a show on dogs or the mind of a dog or how the dog population came to be? Why is that influencing what you're thinking about? I started considering just my own career, my own business career. And I would say that when I entered business, call it 23 years ago, it was pre economic collapse or recession and housing market collapse. It was very much a survival of the fittest environment. Business, which has always been, it's not to say business isn't cutthroat today, don't get me wrong, but it was very, very metrics based, performance based. In other words, there wasn't a tremendous amount of emotional intelligence conversation. I don't even know if that term was coined just yet. There certainly was not the various movements that we've seen in business over the past several years. And that movement being like, for example, younger generations seeing work as much more than just a place to get a paycheck, but a place to create family and friends. And there's not as much separation between work and home life. You know, there's just generational changes overall. Bottom line is, I've kind of observed in my 20 plus years of business this transition from what was highly performance based and metrics driven to something that's broader than that today, where the metrics still the performance still matters, but so do relationships to a greater extent. So does cooperation and collaboration and kindness. They're just perceived differently than they once were. This idea of survival of the friendliest really kind of lends itself to today's interconnected world, this cooperative society type of world, where things like collaboration and emotional intelligence are just more important for success than what used to just be raw competition or strength. Survival of the fittest emphasized competition and dominance. And modern environments have always kind of rewarded those things. But today, it's kind of morphed into more than that, in that it's strong relationships, working well with others, and fostering trust at a different level than yesteryear. So, survival of the friendliest, where does this show up today? Where is it relevant? I've mentioned some of these things, but it starts with, I think, collaboration over competition. Success is increasingly dependent on teamwork and on collaboration in this interconnected world. It's no longer the assembly line. While that was teamwork, it was I do my job, I hand off to you, you do your job, you hand off to the next person. So there's an element of teamwork. Today, though, it is much more work group based. We collaborate, we work together, we pull resources and share knowledge and innovate together. We're not in isolation. So it's collaboration over competition. It's about emotional intelligence and empathy. Traits like empathy and social awareness and communication abilities, these are key factors now in leadership and business to an extent never experienced. Those who understand and manage their emotions, as well as can relate to the emotions of others, are the individuals that are getting promoted in leadership today because they have stronger networks. They build more cohesive teams. Survival of the friendliest has to do with trust in relationships. Long term success in today's world hinges on relationships. And we're in each other's worlds 24/7. There's no longer a disconnect. So the friendliest, the friendly behavior matters. Whether it's business partnerships or customer loyalty or just workplace dynamics, the ability to build trust and have positive relationships can actually be a really great predictor of success, more so than the traditional kind of cutthroat competition. Friendliness fosters trust, and in turn, that leads to cooperation and opportunities. There's just been this cultural shift towards inclusivity. That's just the reality. Society values diversity, collaboration, inclusivity much more than it used to. And businesses and individuals who embrace these principles, the friendliest versus the fittest, they're more likely to succeed. That's just what we've seen right now. They attract a wider range of talent and more ideas and more support. So, in business and in leadership, this stuff is mattering. So, the conclusion here is while the traits of resilience and competitiveness, these things are still important. They're always going to be topics we cover here at No Days Off. They matter. They matter to me. And I'm going to always be talking about it. I want resilient, competitive, driven, goal oriented individuals in my world. While these things are still important, the ability to collaborate and build relationships and be empathetic, it's proving to be an equally sustainable path to success. It's frankly, in my opinion, the other half of the pie these days. So in today's world, the friendliest individuals and organizations seem to be the ones that are adapting, thriving, and creating lasting impact. Much more so than just 2 decades ago, when if you were perceived as a friendly organization, you were seen as someone not competitive or able to flourish. And the world's just changed. So, where am I going with all of this? And why is this the topic today? I don't think we talk about this survival of the friendliest, which means to me, we all have to study how to be a better friend, as silly as that may sound. And what are great friends? They listen, they collaborate, they communicate, they're trustworthy, they're dependable, right? They care, they're empathetic. These attributes, these are the things today that are helping us not just survive, but thrive. And while survival of the fittest will always remain just because evolution says so, survival of the friendliest, is certainly something we all should consider. That's all I have for you today, the No Days Off podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, every single day brings a new opportunity to get